All right, so our lesson is 4-2. Our math goal is patterns of five. So write down anything you know about patterns of five and then come back to me. And if you don't, we're going to take a look at that in just a second. Okay, so what happens when you multiply by 5? Go ahead and solve these. 5 times 1, 5 times 2. Go ahead and write these down in your math notebook and solve them and see if you notice a pattern and then come back to me. Okay, so let's take a look at it. So notice I have an odd number and it ends in a 5. Odd number, it ends in a 5. Odd number ends in a 5. Odd number ends in a 5. And so all my odd numbers, if you're multiplying by an odd number or multiplying by 5, it's going to end up in a 5, okay? And if you are multiplying by an even number, notice it ends in a 0. Even number ends in a 0. Even number ends in a 0. Even number ends in a 0, okay? All right, let's look at an example. So what happens though if you're multiplying by a rule of 10? So 50 times 2, I got 10. I'm following the rules of 10. What's wrong with my answer? See if you can figure that out and then come back to me. Okay, so what did you think? So, right, because if I multiply 5 times 2, if I follow that rule, 5 times 2 is 10. But because it ends in a 0, I got to add another 0. So when you're multiplying by a multiple of 10 and it's a odd number, you add another 0, or even if it's an even number. And you're going to see that in just a second when we see some more examples. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So describe how many zeros there will be, then solve, okay? So let's look. So 80 times 5. So I notice that 80 is an even number. So that means it's going to end in a 0, okay? But it's a product of 10, so it means I'm going to have to add an extra 0. So that means I have 1 0 plus I'm going to need to add an extra 0. It's going to make 2 zeros, and we'll see, because look, 5 times 8 is 40 plus my other 0. So see how we needed to add another one? So it gave us 2 zeros. So let's take it to the next one. 7 times 5, right? 7 is an odd number, right? So I know it's going to end in a 5, not a 0. So I'm only going to have 1 0. So 7 times 5 is 35 plus my 0 that I had. So it only has that 1 0. I don't have to add an extra one like I did on this one, because this one ended in it. This one was an even number. So let's take a look at this one. Same thing. So 90 times 50, sorry. 9 is an odd number. So I know it's not going to end in a 0, so I'm not going to have to add an extra 0. So that means I'm only have 2 zeros, because 9 times 5 is 45. And then I got to add my 2 zeros. And then the next one, 60 times 50. So 60 is an even number, so I know it's going to end in a 0. So I already have that 0 plus the 0 and this 0. It's going to give me three zeros on that one, okay? And let's see, 6 times 5 is my 30, ends in a 0, but I got to add my other 2 zeros. So see how it ends, see how we have 3 zeros on that one, okay? Okay, so you try some. Write these down in your math notebook. Decide how many zeros there will be, then solve. Okay, so first decide, is it an odd number or even number? Remember, if it's an odd number, it's going to end in a 5 and you're not going to need an extra 0. But if it's an even number, you're going to have to add an extra 0. Okay, so go ahead and do these and then come back to me. Okay, so 20 times 5. So hopefully you said that because the 2, right, is an even number, you needed an extra 0. So you already had 1 0 plus the extra 0 makes it 2 zeros. 2 times 5 is 10 plus the extra 0. 500 times 5. So 5 is an odd number, so you're not going to need any extra zeros. And I notice here I made a mistake. And I made a mistake. 5 times 5 is 25 and only 2 zeros. So there's a mistake right there. Sorry about that. Okay, so this shouldn't be 25,000, right? It should be 2,500 because 5 times 5 is 25 and then only 2 zeros because it's an odd number. Okay, see, even teachers make mistakes. Okay, let's look at the next one. Oh, there's something flying around here. Okay, so 8 is an even number, so I know I'm going to need an extra 0. I already have 1, 2 zeros plus my extra 0 because it is an even number. Oh, there's something flying around. 8 times 5 is 40 plus my 2 zeros makes it 4,000. Okay, this one, 7. 7 is an odd number, right? So I know it's going to end in a 5. So I'm not going to need an extra 0, but I already have 1, 2, 3 zeros. So 7 times 5 is 35 plus my 3 zeros. All right, so write down what you learned today. Proof of learning by solving a problem that's an odd number and an even number with a 5. And then if you have a reflection or a question. All right, that's the end of our lesson.